Watch and burn.
Hey everybody. So tonight I am going to be discussing the 1986 film Cobra, starring Brigitte Nielsen, Reni Santoni, and Andy Robinson, and of course Sylvester Stallone. I've been meaning to do this movie for a really long time. Yeah, I'll put these lights on, why not? I've been meaning to do this movie for a really long time. I've loved this movie since I was a kid, and I've wanted to talk about this movie because I've noticed that whenever this movie gets brought up, people just like live to thrash this movie like it's like the worst movie ever made or whatever. But I never really got that. This in no way was, any worse than Rambo, for example. Like First Blood Part 2 was directed by the same guy, George Cosmatos. The director of this is also the director of the second Rambo. And I love the Rambo movies as well, but people look at like First Blood Part 2, and when it's compared to this, people talk about it like it's like the fucking Godfather or something. And it's like, no, this movie isn't that bad. Yeah, parts of it don't make a lot of sense, the whole pizza thing, but I did another video about that entirely because that is really weird. But I love the violence. I love how this movie low-key feels like a horror movie at times. It turns into sort of a slasher movie with, of course, the night slasher going around slaughtering, what is it now, 16, 17, 18 people, including a sexually assaulted child. That was weird, okay? Them throwing that in, like the news broadcast, including a sexually assaulted child. That is really specific. And that is a little weird that they would toss that in for some reason. Not killing a kid wasn't bad enough, but it's got to be a kid that was the victim of a sex assault. This movie was maybe in tone, it was a lot heavier than other action movies. And that was actually one of the reasons why my parents wouldn't let me see this when I was a kid. My parents were really liberal when it came to movies when I was a kid. Like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, all that, Scarface, Godfathers, whatever, Blade Runner, cool, go nuts. This movie, they didn't love this. And it's because the tone of this movie is ugly. The New World, the group, although they do seem a little under-realized, they're scary. How the movie opens with one of the New World psychos taking over a grocery store, shoving the cart out of the way with the kid in it, blowing that guy away when he says you can leave and he's trying to run down the aisle. Everything about this movie is ugly, and yet everybody's attitude when it comes to this movie is like they get all giggly, like this is like the dumbest movie ever. And I never got that. Yeah, this movie's far from perfect, but every 1980s era action movie, like what, fucking Death Wish 2 and especially Death Wish 3, right? That was fucking filmic perfection or some shit, right? No, and I love Death Wish 3. Death Wish 3 is my favorite Death Wish, but that movie's just as dumb as this, if not more so. And so everybody's saying that like the acting was atrocious. The acting wasn't really that bad. Brigitte Nielsen, she's not the strongest actor, that's for sure. But of course, she was Stallone's good-looking wife. So of course, with his ego being as big as it was at this point, he was definitely going to put her in the movie. But I also really liked her in the second Beverly Hills Cop. So again, I don't feel that she really detracts from... her acting detracts from my ability to love this movie. I mean, Andy Robinson's in this. Reni Santoni's in this because Stallone did say that Dirty Harry was a direct influence on this movie. They were, of course, both in Dirty Harry. And so you have that pulled in too. And Andy Robinson and Reni Santoni, are two really great actors. And it seems like everybody in this movie is decent or decent enough. And the way the world looks at this movie, it's like I don't know, like The Room or some shit. And it's just not like the violence is amazing. The giant shootout at the end is super cool when he's gearing up in the hotel room in the Foundry Town when he's got those two like laser sighted Uzis. Like that's amazing. Especially when you're a little kid. That is really amazing. And I've watched this movie like hundreds of times since I first saw it. Like when I was finally, I don't remember, I had to be in grade 6 or 7 by the time I was able to actually see this movie. And that's like back in like 90 or 91. So here it is in 2024. And I've just watched this movie again yesterday. And I still don't see what everybody's problem with it is. I mean, yeah, the sketch of the night slasher, that drawing is abysmal. And the start of the movie doesn't really make much sense. When he's like, the whole, you're the disease and I'm the cure thing. He comes out of the freezer. And in my experience, Like grocery store freezers usually only have one way in and one way out. The entrance is the exit. So I don't exactly know how Cobretti was able to come from the freezer to engage the dude who's holding the family hostage with the bomb. There's that. And of course, the notorious pizza cutting scene where he goes into his apartment and he leaves his gloves on and he leaves his sunglasses on. That doesn't make much sense either. But the violence, the murders, the tone, the grit, that massive shootout at the end is classic Cannon. Okay, and I know Cannon films were far from perfect, but they did, in a large part, define my childhood. So they're always going to have a special place in my heart. But the shootout's amazing. The violence is wicked. The New World thing, it was a little underrealized. You know, at the start when the movie's getting going, you see the clanking of the axes and all that. And I love that. And it looks like it's building into this kind of crazy, scary army. And then you see like another shot of them all together in the room where they've got the logo up on the wall and this shitty old factory they're all in. And you see people from all walks of life. So you're like, whoa, this New World thing, this New World cult, like they're everywhere. But then it seems like it's just been completely underrealized because there's not enough people in the room. Whenever they do like the wide shot, there's like a handful of guys there, and that doesn't exactly equate to being the army that Cobretti is trying to convince his superiors of them being out there hunting Ingrid. I felt like the New World thing, we could have fleshed that out more. I thought that would have been cool because the New World idea was scary, that this wasn't just some random madman going around slaughtering people. It was a whole army of people who were supporting him slaughtering people because they were attempting to some sort of social Darwinistic take on society, and they wanted to reshape society in their own image. And I thought that was cool. I thought that made the movie better, but it was just so thin. There weren't enough guys. There weren't enough... You know, the fact that one of the chicks works for the police department was a nice touch, but you could have shown that their tentacles had spread even further than that to imply that this New World was something that Cobretti has to defeat because they could take over or something to that effect. So yeah, the movie is far from perfect, but I just don't understand all of the hate. I mean, there's so many things that I do dig about this movie. Actually, I think I covered it all. Another thing that I noticed at the start of the movie, when the essays won't move their car for him, so he pushes it out of the way, and then he rips the guy's shirt. You can see the guy's mic, where he's mic'd up, so you can hear him when he's acting. Maybe they shouldn't have had Cobretti tear the front of the guy's shirt off. And that leads me into having another question, where Cobretti, sure, you could see the handle from his pistol in his waist, but these guys are like gangbanger types, and it's like they don't have guns themselves. And then Cobretti rips his shirt in front of his chick and his buddies, and the guy just kicks the tire of Cobretti's car, and his buddy's like, yeah, man, you really showed him. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of dumb. So I do get why people don't love this movie, but I don't get all the hate. This movie has been awesome since I was a kid. And as of like last night, that's got to be the 1,001st time that I've seen this movie. And I just don't understand why everybody jumps all over this. And the other thing that didn't make much sense was the photo shoot with all the robots. That just didn't fit. Something about that has always rubbed me the wrong way. But look, that is where I'm leaving it. So thank you so much for hanging out with me for just about 9 minutes while I discussed the 1986 film Cobra. Like always, if you like this review, or like me, if you love this movie, don't forget to go out and do something nice for somebody. But most importantly, don't forget that the world is so much more fun because you are in it. Don't give up. Whatever you're going through, things are going to change. And that's it. I'm getting out of here. Have a good night.